So how can the Yankees get to the ALCS and beat the Blue Jays? How can they pull this off? Let's talk about it right now. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Hope you're all doing well. So, the Yankees had a great series against the Boston Red Sox. And it wasn't an easy series, but they played better baseball, right? And they did it without relying on the home run entirely, which is another good facet of this team. And I think the team, once the trade deadline happened, and they brought in some other guys like Ryan McMahon, Jose Caballero, Ahmed Rosario, Austin Slater, and some of these guys, they became less reliant on the home run, and they become much more strong and defensively on the defensive side, better base running. Just added them an aggressiveness and an attitude to this team that I think needs to be there in order to beat the team like the Blue Jays. Okay, now Yankees had the most home runs in baseball. I think it was 274, but the Blue Jays have the most hits in baseball. 1,461. They have 90 more than the Yankees. They're at 1,371, the Yankees. Okay. And by the way, later on, once the roster comes out, 26-man roster, I'll get that to you. Once the lineup comes out, I get that to you too. So you know exactly what to do if you don't want to miss that stuff. Just make sure that you're subscribed. Make sure you hit the like button if you enjoy the content enough to come back. And as always, I thank you so much for that. Okay. Now, a couple things here. Okay. In terms of the roster, and I want to thank Ryan from Bronx Talks and Ken from the Ugly Truth for coming on and talking about this last night. We previewed the series and kind of give our thoughts on her roster and how different or similar it should be versus the roster they put forth against Boston. Okay, this is a different team, different plan of attack, right? Boston looks like it has better frontline starting pitching, but Toronto has different things, right? And Toronto could also be missing some folks. They could be without Chris Bassett, who's having a back problem, and they could be without Bo Bichette, who's had a sprained knee. Now, once the roster comes out for Toronto, we'll have a better idea. But it sounds as if they might be without both. Doesn't mean they can't beat the Yankees. I mean, they went this far without Anthony Santander the season, and there was some of these other guys this season. So, and they won. They still won the division. Put forth a valiant effort and played some serious baseball. That lineup is just as deep and talented as the Yankees is. So, and they do have home field advantage. So it's going to be 2 in Toronto, 2 in the Bronx, and then 1 in Toronto. Okay, if it gets to 5. Now, some things that I think that are going to be really, really important. Number one, since the Blue Jays pitching gives up a lot of home runs, they do. We need our home run guys to come alive. We beat Boston without home runs from Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Trent Grisham, any of them. What are home runs coming from? And Rice, Anthony Volpe, like guys like that. So if these guys heat up right now, then the Yankees team is going to be a really dangerous team. So I do think that the power bats kind of need to contribute some of that power. And we know anytime Judge and Stanton homer in the same game, they almost win every single time. If all 3 of them home run, I'm not sure if they've ever lost with the 3 of them homering in the same game. So that's another thing there. Okay. Now Aaron Judge is already hitting almost 400 this series, so but without home runs. Giancarlo Stanton had that ball against Boston yesterday, hit the top of the fence, came back. Wasn't a home run, but he's kind of getting there. I've said this recently too. It's kind of a pattern with Giancarlo Stanton, right? He goes from striking out to then putting the ball in play. He was hitting the ball 1,000 miles an hour, but on the ground into people's gloves. That's kind of a sign he's ready to break out, right? It's kind of, this happens all the time with Giancarlo Stanton. It's a repeating pattern. So I think he's right there, and I think Aaron Judge is close too. So, and generally when Trent Grisham tends to have a couple of dry games, he tends to just unleash somewhere as well, whether it's doubles or singles or home runs and stuff. So I do expect the 3 of these guys to break out this series. But obviously we're going to need consistency from the rest of the lineup too, right? And a couple things I wanted to point out. Again, the Yankees are going to need to control Vlad Guerrero and George Springer particularly. There's a couple of the guys in that lineup that they want to control as well, especially Alejandro Kirk. He's been punishing the Yankees. I would just walk him every time, just like people walk Judge, just walk Kirk. So we can't hurt the Yankees, right? So that's one of the things that I think would be a really important thing to do. Secondly, is just keep that defense tight. Ever since these guys came here, the defense has gotten so much more fundamentally strong. Right? The Yankees for this year, they made boatloads of errors, particularly against the Blue Jays, and a lot of it revolved around, I think, in my opinion, Anthony Volpe having to lead the infield. Right now, he doesn't have to do that. Ryan McMahon stabilized the whole entire infield defense, taking pressure off Anthony Volpe, and who, since he's got his cortisone shot, right, has been playing better, hitting better, running better, and doing everything better. He's just been playing better baseball. Okay, and despite his frustrating of a lot of fans, and I understand fans get frustrated. He's a 300 hitter in the postseason, 300. So he hits when it matters, and right now it matters, and he's hitting. Okay, and he's fielding, and he's base running. So we need that Anthony Volpe. Okay, we need him on the field too. Remember, Max Fried induces a lot of ground balls, so we need the defense to be tight, right, crisp, right. And if we can control those three bats without ignoring the other bats, I think the Yankees will be in a pretty good shape. Okay, and also depends on who we pitch. Now, in terms of the line, the roster, if I would make any change, I would probably take either Will Warren or Paul Blackburn off and bring Ryan Yarbrough on. And I was talking about this earlier. Think about it this way: you ever go to the batting cage and you hit like you're hitting the 70s, rocking 70, right? Boom, 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 and then you're like, you know what? Let me go to the 90 cage, right? And it's like, what? Whoa! And it's completely overwhelming, right? Think about when you start 90, right? And it's hard to catch up to, but then you move back down to 70. It's like, oh, I can get this much easier. It feels so much slower, and you end up catching up to it. Well, that's what happened early this season when Cam Schlittler pitched, right? And I don't think he got through 2 innings with the Blue Jays. He got hit hard, and then they brought in Yarbrough. The bats immediately caught up to him, right? Because he went from 100 to like a mid 80s, right? And think about the other way around. I wouldn't. I don't know if they'll ever do it, but if they consider starting Yarborough, who had a good start against the Jays this year, and give him 4 or 5 innings, and then you bring Schlittler in. And I know it's crazy. He had this monster start yesterday. He shoved, but he's also a young guy he's thrown a lot of innings this year, right? And I want to protect his arm because I want to go to the ALCS, and he might have to pitch twice in that. So if we can get and this is a short 5-game series. We can get a Yarborough start and a Cam Schlittler for like 4 innings as darts. It'll act like a throw day for him, in my opinion. Now, if they may start him, they may start him. But doesn't have a good track record right now starting against the Blue Jays. And now's not the time to try it again, at least in my opinion. But I understand if they're confident enough to do that because of what he did against Boston yesterday or 2 days ago. So that's just one of the things that I think would be a good idea to consider, right? And get after that bullpen. Okay, I mean Jose Barrios, one of their starters, is in the bullpen, and they've got Jeff Hoffman, I think, is their closer. So again, if we can get leads and manufacture leads and keep them, then the Yankees are going to be well off. They leaned a lot this past series on Fernando Cruz and David Bednar, right? They're going to be fresh for a couple days and so on, but there are some other arms. We might see Camilo Doval. They might make a roster change also, like a change in the bullpen. They might add somebody, take somebody off. I don't know, right? Which is why, if it'd probably be easier to take Blackburn off and keep Warren on just in case somebody else struggles like Hill, you can put Warren in there. He's already built up as a starter, okay? But the reason why I like the dichotomy between Yarborough and Schlittler on a particular day, right, is the difference between the fastballs. It's almost a 15-mile-an-hour difference. Like if you did that with anybody else, Warren throws in the mid-90s, Hill throws in the upper 90s, Rodon upper 90s, Fried upper 90s. There's not much difference there, right? That's the only difference between the two that I think will be could be potentially a sneaky weapon, and probably in Game 4, because the way it sounds like right now, it's either going to be Hill or Warren tomorrow in Game 1, Fried Game 2, Rodon Game 3 at home, and then one of those guys, probably Schlittler, Game 4, and if they go back to Toronto, be Fried again for Game 5. So those are my takes. Okay, and again, keep this in mind: the Blue Jays don't strike out a lot; they walk quite a bit. They have good plate discipline. So if I'm the Yankees, I want to be throwing well on the mound, not walking a lot of people because they are aggressive base runners too. So these to me are the things that I think would be a good idea for the Yankees to try to accomplish to neutralize the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, keeping Vladimir Guerrero at bay as best you can, keeping George Springer at bay as best you can, and Alejandro Kirk. Those three guys, just keep them kind of neutralized as best you can, just like they did with the Astros last time they played. They locked down Altuve and most of the other guys, right? They locked down Bregman and Jarren Duran for most of this last series against Boston, right? Which that's an important combo to lock down. They do the same thing in Toronto, and the power bats wake up for the Yankees. They're going to be really, really hard to beat. Okay. At the end of the day, my prediction is if the Yankees win Game 1 tomorrow or today, later on today, then they're going to win the series in 4. If they lose Game 1 and split the series with Toronto, then I think they're going to come back and win it in 5. Either way, I think the Yankees are going to win the series. I think it's going to be in either 4 or 5 games. Now, you let me know what your thoughts are. I wanted to simplify this kind of plan of attack. It doesn't need to be overly complicated. The majority of the roster is going to stay the same. I don't think any offensive changes need to be made. I think the changes need to be around the margins with the pitching, right? That's what I would do. Okay, and I think this will put them in a position to beat the Blue Jays and get to the ALCS versus either Detroit or the Toronto or the Seattle Mariners. And I think those teams are beatable too. So give me your thoughts. How would you attack this series? Okay, I'll be back later on with the roster, the lineup, and then we're going to go live after the game and hopefully celebrate a win of Game 1. Let's go